Today we're starting with Can We Really Transform Our Health? On Monday, the pillars of lifestyle medicine. Tuesday, we talk about digestion, digestive issues, how to have better digestion, and our body's natural defenses, which means our immune system and how to bump up our immune system. I'm including some other defenses in there. Wednesday, we start talking about weight loss and why it's important. On Thursday, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., I think Thursday we're starting at 5. So on Thursday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., I'm offering free in-body assessments. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the in-body scale and assessment machine. It's this amazing machine that you step on, and it has these arms that you hold on to, and it does a full body assessment of how much do you weigh, what is your BMI, what's your body fat percentage, what amount of your weight is muscle, what amount of it is fat, how much muscle you have on your right arm, your right leg, your left leg, what is your basal metabolic rate, meaning what's your metabolism. It's just a lot of information, and I'll be offering a free assessment with that machine and then a discussion about the results for anyone who wants to come here on Thursday between 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Hopefully we'll be able to accommodate everyone. I'll also be taking blood pressure and discussing that with you as part of that visit. So between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. on Thursday. And then Thursday night, we talk more about weight loss and the psychological aspects of weight loss, which I think is something which is not often discussed enough. On Friday, we end with healthy eating made easy, and Friday is the last night. And then on Friday, we'll see who gets a free book and who doesn't get a free book. My naturopath, I will be here during the days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Thursday, of course, I'm doing the assessment. If anybody would like a one-on-one naturopathic visit with me, there would be a cost, but if you feel that you don't have the means to meet the cost, when we have our one-on-one visit, we can talk about that and see if we can help out or work something out that way. So that's every day except for Monday. I'll be here and available. If you'd like to actually make an appointment, you can stay tonight so I can start getting a schedule together so I can accommodate everyone. And I think that's it for the announcements. So let's get started. Health transformation, is it possible? Tonight is called Dinner with the Doctor. You will be receiving a wonderful dinner. Hopefully you didn't come ravenous because it won't be served for about half an hour. But every evening we will be serving a free plant-based dinner as part of our conference. So you don't have to make your dinner, come ready to eat something really delicious. Today we're starting early at 4:30, but as of tomorrow, it's every evening at 5 p.m. and we'll be finished at 8 p.m. at the latest. So health transformation, is it possible? I'm going to start by asking you, is there anybody here who has high blood pressure or is on high blood pressure medication? Okay. Is there anybody here who has diabetes? Okay. Is there anybody here who has some type of cardiovascular disease? Okay. Wow, not as many hands as I expected. Is there anybody here who is overweight? Okay. So we've hit the three main conditions that I'm going to talk about tonight: high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. Health transformation, is it possible? I'll tell you why this is the question for this evening. Transforming your health, I call it the final frontier. Oh yes, as you can see now, we've also provided notes and paper so you can take notes every night. Is health transformation possible? Why do I call it the final frontier? So on the screen, you'll notice the Star Trek Enterprise. And the saying with the Star Trek Enterprise is, with the Enterprise, we're boldly going where no man has ever gone before. Does everybody remember that? Maybe some people are more into Star Wars. I'm into both. To boldly go where no man has gone before. When it comes to your health, where is that? It means that you transform your health and then you never go back. That's to boldly go where no man has gone before. With diabetes, or it might be with high blood pressure, it might be with obesity. Sometimes it's going off your medication and never going back on. Not that I'm telling people to go off your medication, but there are changes you can make so that you reverse these diseases. With obesity, it means, and I will have a picture of my former obese self on Wednesday and Thursday. You don't get to see it right off the bat. But with obesity, it means losing the weight and never going back, never regaining the weight again. What often happens with weight loss is people make radical changes, they lose the weight, and what happens after that? You tell me. They gain the weight back. And then they try something else and they gain the weight back. To boldly go where no man's gone before, to make the changes and never go back. So can we reverse our health? I would say the first step in reversing your health, actually, I'll ask you, what do you think the first step is in reversing our health? It might not be what you think, but I want to hear what you guys think. Go ahead. Okay, that's closer to the answer I was going to say. Okay, making a decision. Anybody else? Gathering information. Excellent. Anybody else? Drinking lots of water. Very important step. Recognizing you need to make change. These are all excellent ideas, and I didn't think anybody would say them. So amazing. I would say, yes? Use the mic? Yes. I would say the first step is actually a combination of nearly everything here, except drinking more water, very important. We're going to talk about that on the night where we talk about the pillars of health, which is tomorrow. First step is believing it's possible. So part of believing it's possible is recognizing that you have a problem. It's making a decision. And then the next steps in that, getting the necessary information. But it starts with the belief. Do I believe it's possible to completely transform my health and never go back to the way I was before? Because when you really, really believe it's possible, then you make the decision. You recognize the need, you go out of your way to get the information, all those things are involved, and you take the steps. But if you don't believe it, you'll be a little bit lackadaisical in all those other steps. Yeah, okay, maybe. Instead of, yes, I've decided I'll give it a try. Not saying that I'll give it a try is not a good, at least you're making the effort, but do you believe it's possible? And I found for me, when I transformed my health by God's grace. Many years ago, I tried many different things to lose weight. I was losing my breath. I couldn't walk upstairs and feel comfortable. I couldn't fit my clothes. I was depressed, etc., etc. Finally, when I believed it was possible, and I only believed it was possible because I had a friend who was overweight and unhealthy and had transformed his health. And it's someone I knew. I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. That made me believe it's possible. As soon as I believed it was possible, then I made the changes and they stuck. That was years and years after trying many things. So step number 1, believe it's possible. Can you transform your health? Yes, if you believe it. Step number 2, avoid or address these 3 conditions. So you said, sorry, what was your name? Hendy. Hendy, you said it is recognizing the need. So avoiding or addressing whatever your condition is, recognizing the need to make a change. Believe it's possible, make a decision, recognize the need. How important is this? How much can it impact your life? Because when you change your health, it impacts everything. It's not just your physical body, it's the chemicals being secreted from your brain, it's your life perspective, it's happiness, it's how you make decisions. It goes on and on. Or avoid or address these 3 conditions. And these 3 conditions, I would say, there's more to it, but I would say the 3 most common conditions I see are obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and those 3 tend to go together. So one leads to another. And the reason why I decided that my clinical focus would be weight loss, of course, because I had gone on a weight loss journey and it transformed my life. But I also recognized that a lot of the conditions that I saw, that they got better when people lost weight or had a regular BMI. There are some conditions where it doesn't apply, but many where it does. So can we reverse these 3 conditions? I would say absolutely. If there's anyone here who is pre-diabetic or diabetic or knows someone who's diabetic or doesn't want to be diabetic, I would suggest watching this movie, which is maybe 10 years old. It is now on YouTube and it's free. It's called Simply Raw, Reversing Diabetes in 30 Days. So why do I promote this film? I better start my timer or we'll be here all night. I'm promoting this because it just helps people to know that reversing disease is possible. At one point, it was believed if you had type 2 diabetes, then you're going to have it for the rest of your life and you'd be on medication for the rest of your life. I actually had a patient who came to see me for diabetes, and I put her on a supplement. She lost weight. She went on a meal plan. She joined the gym. She was making all of these changes. She went off her medication. And when she went to see, this is about 8 years ago. So I think this way of thinking has changed amongst medical doctors. But when she went to see her MD said, that's great, and your blood sugar is regulated now, but I'm telling you, you'll be on medication for the rest of your life. Even though she was off the medication and had made all these changes. It was someone from church. She came to me during the church service crying, saying she had just seen her doctor the day before, and her doctor said it's impossible to reverse diabetes, and she would be on the medication for the rest of her life. And she wanted her to go back on, even though her blood sugar was regulated. All of that to say that the belief now, even with medical doctors, is diabetes is reversible. Type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is a little harder because it's an autoimmune condition. And I'm not telling you if you're on diabetes medication right now to go off. That's not what I'm saying. So don't go to your doctor and say, Dr. Nadine said stop taking my medication. But it starts with the belief. As I said, it is possible. So when you watch this movie, you'll see people who have diabetes, who've been on insulin for years, and you'll see their journey. The interesting thing, one of the things that comes up, which we'll talk about Wednesday and Thursday, is the dependency that people have on food. When people change their diets, and you might find this when you're changing your diet, you might realize, oh, I'm not eating because I'm hungry. Like the food that I'm eating, like the food you'll eat tonight, is so delicious and wonderful, but I still want that ice cream or chocolate cake. And I'm not hungry. The food, I'm satisfied, but your brain's saying you want the ice cream and chocolate cake. So we get to the point of realizing that the way we eat, our food choices often have, not always, but often have nothing to do with being hungry or satisfying our nutritional needs. There's a huge psychological and emotional component to eating. Would people agree? And for myself, that's part of the reason why I gained nearly 60 pounds. But it took me a long time after that to realize, oh, I wasn't eating 4 chocolate bars a day. And I was, because I was hungry. There was something else driving that behavior. Hamburgers, fries, chips, you name it. It was all part of my regular. But then years later, I realized, oh, okay, I was probably eating these things out of emotional needs, etc. So you'll see that in this movie. When people make changes, other things come up. There's something interesting that I heard about the most recent diabetes drug, which is called Ozempic, which was in a book, which if you're interested in finding out more about Ozempic, that book's called The Magic Pill. And the author of The Magic Pill, not that I promote that drug, but he's on it. And he spent a year traveling around the world, interviewing different doctors and gathering information about side effects and people's experiences, and he put it in the book. And one of the interesting things he found was when people went on that drug, they became depressed. And there are 2 reasons why he thinks they became depressed. Not everyone, but a lot of people became depressed. A lot of people also became either gamblers or some other kind of addiction. One of the reasons is the way that the drug affects your brain chemistry. But the other reason is people realized that they use food as an emotional coping mechanism. And then when they lost their appetite, they lost their coping mechanism. So now they had to deal with all of these issues without going to food, and they became depressed, which just said to me that there's a lot more to eating than just hunger. There's a lot of psychological and emotional eating that we do. And just what came up in that book kind of highlighted that for me. So I hope that you enjoy the movie Simply Raw. For anyone here who has diabetes or knows someone with diabetes, or you think you might be diabetic, the first way that you can find out if you're diabetic is by getting a blood test. So a lot of people don't know what their blood sugars are like because they never go to the doctor and they don't get a blood test. But even if you haven't gotten a blood test, there are 3 main symptoms that you might experience that will tell you, your body's way of telling you your sugar is high. These 3 symptoms, I call it the story of the poly sisters. It's polydipsia, polyuria, polyphagia. So what does that mean? Polydipsia means you're always thirsty. You're drinking water all the time. You're probably urinating at night. That's your ways. Urination is your body's way of getting rid of the sugar. And it's never quenched. So it's the thirst that is never quenched. Polyuria, going to the bathroom all the time. I mean, everybody urinates throughout the day, but this is like maybe every half an hour. And then at night as well. At night, we're not busy, we're not distracted. Your body's trying to get rid of the blood sugar, high sugar levels through the urine. Polyphagia, you're hungry all the time and you're eating all the time. This is the hunger that is never satisfied. So you eat and you don't feel like you can ever get full. I mean, sometimes that's part of emotional eating, but the point is you have all 3. So if you have polyphagia, I mean, you might not necessarily have diabetes, but if you're thirsty all the time, the thirst that's never quenched, you're going to the bathroom all the time and it seems to never stop. You're eating and hungry all the time, it's the hunger that's never satisfied, then most likely your blood sugar levels are high. So even if you haven't had a blood test, but you've been experiencing these 3 symptoms, all 3, then it would be important to go and get a blood test and see what your blood sugars are. Those 3 are very important. Other things, there might be we're going to talk about risk factors for diabetes, but there's one other way of knowing if your blood sugar levels are high, even if you don't go to the doctor, and that is a condition on the skin. So when you have a lot of sugar in your blood, it can show up on the skin. And this is called acanthosis nigricans. It means you get a dark patch. Sometimes people get rashes. Normally a rash is more red, but this is like a really dark, almost a black rash under your arms, behind your neck, and in the groin area. And the other interesting thing, if your skin is dark, then you'll notice that the texture of your skin is different. So you'll have this patch where the texture feels like velvet or velour, and you know it's not your normal skin texture. That's an indication of diabetes or insulin resistance. I actually had a patient whose skin color was just like that, and actually his underarm looked just like that, but this isn't him. And he came to see me for our very first visit. I'd never seen him before. I was working at a university in the clinic at the university, and I normally do an inspection where the person just sits there and I look at them from the top of their head right down to their toenails to see if there's anything that stands out. As I was doing this, and I looked at the back of his neck, I noticed that he had a dark patch. So he was East Indian, so his skin was brown, but this patch at the back of his neck was very dark, almost black. So I said, "Can you put your arms up in the air?" And he did, and he had patches like this underneath his arms. And I said, "How long has that been there?" "Oh, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months. I'm not sure what it is. I just thought it'd go away." I said, "I think you might have type 2 diabetes, and this is actually because of insulin resistance and high blood sugar levels." His whole face changed because his dad had just died of diabetes, like within a month. And his whole face changed. He was like, "I don't want to have diabetes." I sent him to the MD who I worked with in the clinic. They did a blood sugar reading. It was off the charts, and he was put on insulin right away. And then he came to see me for something else, for pain. And but the doctor recommended he be on insulin for a while because his blood sugar was so high. So just seeing these things, my dad's brother actually has a very dark patch behind his neck, and he has type 2 diabetes. And so it's something that's easily viewable. It's interesting because my dad's brother has diabetes. My dad's sister has diabetes. One of the risk factors, which we're going to go over right now for diabetes, is having family members who have diabetes. So that would mean that I'm at risk for getting type 2 diabetes. But just because you're at risk, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And even if you have diabetes, it is reversible. So we're going to talk about how it's reversible, but let's talk about the risk factors. How many people here are over the age of 40? I admit I'm over 40. So you're at risk for type 2 diabetes. Why would being over 40 put you at risk for type 2 diabetes? I'll ask you, what do you think? Body's breaking down. Okay, why is your body breaking down? Okay, but why does your body break down when you get older? Bad habits. Excellent. Who said bad habits? Thyra, bad habits. Bad habits over time. So bad habits over, I'll use the mic. Bad habits over time. So when you're 20, you think, not a big deal. 25, 30, you keep up with the bad habits. And then when you hit 40, 45, it's like those bad habits catch up to you. So your body doesn't have to break down. This is actually one of the beliefs I'd like us to start changing right now, that when you get old, your body breaks down. It doesn't have to. And if you're already old, you can even change it now. Older. What is old? Even if you're older, over 40, you can make the changes now. Your body doesn't have to break down when you get older. You don't have to be on medication when you get older, and you don't have to have a disease when you get older. I think those are 3 common beliefs, at least in North American society. It is normal to be on medication. It's normal to have a disease. It's normal for your body to break down when you're old. So I'm hoping that I can help us eradicate and change those beliefs. It might be common, but it's not normal. it's common but not normal. So after 40 years of age, usually it's because you've had bad habits for a long period of time. One of those habits includes not doing a lot of exercises and eating the wrong way. Weight is normal or high, so just looking at this second risk factor, if you change your weight, so you're in a regular or a more healthy BMI, meaning you're a healthier weight for your height. When I was overweight, I used to just think, oh, if I can only grow 4 more inches, then that'll take care of this whole problem. But I still do try to tell my body to grow 4 inches, but it hasn't worked. So higher weight or normal weight, slow onset. What does slow onset mean? It means most people don't go from having a regular blood sugar to diabetes the next day. Usually it's a matter of time. Your blood sugar is going up, and then you're in the pre-diabetic range, which, by the way, is the best time to make changes, and then you're in the diabetic range. And that could take a year, that could take several years. Slow onset. This really applies. It's not due to an autoimmune disease. Also not due to an autoimmune disease. No islet antibody, again, not due to an autoimmune disease, which would be type 1 diabetes. And even those last 3 points there, which I won't go into too much, have to do with a genetic autoimmune disease. The last point there has to do with what I said about my dad's sister. So that's my aunt, my dad's brother, my uncle, both having diabetes, and probably another uncle as well. There's a strong genetic association. So what they found in twin studies and other studies is there's a genetic association or a familial association with type 2 diabetes. If someone in your family has it, especially a parent or aunts and uncles, then your likelihood of getting diabetes or having diabetes is higher. Yes, go ahead. I've never heard that. I would say probably a myth. I think that applies with twins, though. But I've never heard that for type 2 diabetes. But then part of the question is part of that genetic association nature or nurture? Is it because you're doing the same thing that your parents did, that your uncles, aunts did, or is it DNA and in the blood? And that hasn't really been resolved yet. But strong genetic association. The reason why I'm talking about the risk factors, and I think that might be, we'll talk about that final one, is if you know what the risks are, then you know what not to do or what to do the opposite of so that you can either reverse it or avoid it. The very final risk is the one where you can make the biggest change. You can't divorce your parents or aunts or uncles, so I can't change that. But I can change the final thing, obesity and inactivity. And this isn't just for diabetes. This is for health transformation overall. 2 things that are changeable, obesity meaning lose weight, inactivity meaning get active, start exercising. I've often heard this saying, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. Has anybody heard that? You can't out-exercise a bad diet. For a while, I was going to the gym maybe an hour and a half per day, 6 days a week, and that was just my norm. And so I heard a lot of like the gym talk, especially from the guys. And the other saying was abs, like a 6-pack of abs are made in the kitchen, not the gym. So abs are made in the kitchen, and you can't outrun or out-exercise a bad diet. The belief is this, that 80% of weight loss is what you put in your mouth. And 80% of health from food or exercise, when it comes to food and exercise, is what you eat. 20% is exercise. However, to add on to that, when it comes to diabetes, exercise is key. What you're putting in, I would say it's more like 50-50. And maybe I'll ask you, I won't keep putting you on the spot, but why do you think in diabetes it's a little bit different when it comes to exercise? 50% what you're putting in your mouth, 50% exercise. Why would that be the ratio? Exactly. You're burning up the sugar. So with diabetes, it's a little bit different. Yes, 50% what you put in your mouth. I'm not saying don't pay attention to that, but you eat that food and after that you burn the sugar. I actually have a good friend. She's an MD, who then went into psychiatry, and her daughters really like baking. They came home from university, and a few summers ago they decided they're going to start baking. Well, her kids, they were like 18 or 19, took up baking all summer, and she joined them. And then they went for blood tests. They happened to go for blood tests shortly before, a month before they were going back to school. They were all pre-diabetic. From eating and they were doing like macaroons, scones, croissants. They were baking, they were eating that all summer. They all became pre-diabetic, so heavy carbs. And so she decided what they were going to do. Number one, remove the obvious factor, stop baking. But number two, after every meal, she insisted that she and her daughters, who are twins, who I know, who are lovely, that she and her daughters go for a walk after every meal. Like, she didn't want them being too concerned about diabetes. She didn't want to talk about medication, which was going to be the next step. That was what she implemented. We eat together, we wait 15 minutes, we go for a walk after every meal. They did that for 1 month, and then they went back for blood tests, and their blood sugar was back in the normal range. So when it comes to diabetes, that's why I say 50-50. You want to burn up the sugar that you're eating. So one of the things you could incorporate as a lifestyle change, and this goes for better digestion for everybody. After you finish your meals, wait 15 minutes, go for a walk or exercise. It doesn't even have to be like, a really power walk. You're just walking, you're burning up the sugar that you just ate. Does that make sense? That's also something we're going to talk about on Tuesday. It's also something that applies to better digestion. So I call that a burning up the sugar walk, or you can call it a digestive walk. For better digestion, 15 minutes after you finish eating, go for a walk. It's going to help you to digest your food, and it also helps to prevent acid reflux. So a lot of people get acid reflux after eating because they sit down or lie down after their meals. To avoid acid reflux, go for that walk after your meal. If you can't go after every meal, go after your biggest meal. And hopefully, your biggest meal of the day would be lunch. Yes, lunch. Go light at night. For weight loss, to avoid acid reflux, for better digestion, there are just so many benefits of having a light dinner, making lunch your biggest meal, and making breakfast a meal that has some protein in it, but not the biggest meal of the day. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about weight loss on Wednesday, because I know most people have heard eat breakfast like a king, I think, lunch like a queen, dinner like a pauper, someone who's not royal. But I would say eat breakfast like the queen, though sometimes queens eat like kings, and lunch like the king, prince, king and prince. Make your biggest meal lunch and your lightest meal dinner. Yes?
If you have more fatty food,
Yes.
you got more chance on diabetes?
If you have more fatty food.
Fatty food,
Yes.
yeah, like meat and
Does that affect diabetes?
yeah.
I mean, a diet that's higher in fat, definitely. There are actually two components of diabetes. Most people think I need to avoid sugar, and some people think I need to avoid carbs, which I support both of those. But actually, fat is one of the things that gums up the receptor, the insulin receptor on a cell, and that makes it difficult for insulin to connect to the cell so the cell can open up to receive the blood sugar. So I also recommend a diet that is healthy, has healthy fats, but not unhealthy fats. So healthy fats, nuts, seeds, not too much, because those are very calorie dense. And then I only recommend 2 oils, which would be olive oil or avocado oil. I mean, for certain patients, sometimes coconut oil, but yes. But mostly avocado oil or olive oil, and preferably extra virgin, cold pressed, organic. Let's take a look at, actually we're not going to look at that because I don't want to get too technical tonight. Let's talk about some of the things that help with diabetes, and then I'll talk about actually what diabetes is and what's happening in the cell, which I just mentioned. But some people may have heard of the Mediterranean diet. Has anybody heard of this diet? Mediterranean diet. It's a diet that's recommended for reversing or helping to control or preventing type 2 diabetes. It's a diet that's recommended for obesity. It's a diet that's recommended for high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, etc. So in the Mediterranean diet, as a clinical healthcare provider, I actually recommend the green Mediterranean diet. Has anybody heard of that? It's the vegan version of the Mediterranean diet. Though with some patients, I do recommend a little bit of fish. But the green Mediterranean diet also has no alcohol. So the Mediterranean diet's been around for a long time. You'll notice point number 4 there, it says water and wine are the typical beverages of the Mediterranean diet. Water is consumed throughout the day, and a 5-ounce glass of wine is enjoyed in moderation, meaning up to 1 glass per day for women or 2 for men. The Canadian Association of Alcohol, the Canadian Alcohol and Addiction Council, if I'm getting it right, in January 2023 completely changed their recommendations for alcohol. So this is based on an older study. In January 2023, they changed it to 1 glass of wine or alcohol per week for women or 2 glasses per week for men, because they're now realizing that there's an association between alcohol and obesity, as well as alcohol and cancer. So they've changed that recommendation completely. So that's one of the reasons I recommend the green Mediterranean diet, which also is a Mediterranean diet with no alcohol. Using good fats in the Mediterranean diet, like extra virgin olive oil, nuts, sunflower seeds, olives. Cooking, you might have meatless meals once or more per week. I do the opposite. So once a week is a day where you might have salmon, or you might have some turkey or some chicken, some other kind of fish. The fish that are oily, that have good oil in it, the first name of those fish spell out the word smash. So it's salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and I think haddock, if I'm right. Heron? I think. I have to check the H. But generally with the green Mediterranean diet, I recommend a diet that doesn't have fish. But if someone's not open to doing that, then I recommend one of those fish once a week. And saving sweets for special occasions, which is like once or twice a year, as opposed to once a week. These are the basic principles of the Mediterranean diet. The thing that's most common in the Mediterranean diet, lots of leafy greens, like what you're going to be given today, lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, and it's high in nuts and different seeds as well. It's interesting because there's a Mediterranean diet pyramid, and I don't have it here, but ooh, that food smells good. In the Mediterranean diet pyramid, so it looks like this, and at the bottom it has what you should eat most of, at the top what you should eat the least of. At the top are sweets, but at the very bottom it isn't food, which is interesting. The thing they recommend for the Mediterranean diet to do the most of, and it has nothing to do with eating, even though it's called a diet, it is spending time with family and friends. Isn't that interesting for a diet? The very first tier of that pyramid is what you're doing to help make you happy. Spending time socializing, spending time with family and friends, and after that it talks about what to eat and what not to eat. Before we talk about other things to eat or not eat, or that you can do to reduce blood sugar, one of the biggest things is just removing from your diet the things that cause you or could cause you to be unhealthy. And I'll ask you, what do you think some of those things are? Okay, hamburgers. Anybody else?
Anything with lots of refined flour and refined sugar.
Okay, anything with refined flour and refined sugar? Yes. Anybody else? All right. Ultra processed foods. So the first step, people always ask me, what should I eat? Tell me the diet. Should I go vegan? Should I go keto? Like, is it the paleo diet? I mean, there's so many people are still talking about the South Beach diet, the Atkins diet. They just want me to give them the diet to eat. But I would say the first step is not the diet that you're eating. That's very important. The first step is removing the things that are in your diet that make you sick. So first step is take things out, and then the next step is put things in. So remove the things that you're eating that make you sick. And those things are ultra-processed foods, really things that have a lot of processed white flour, processed sugar, potato chips, ice cream, chocolate bars. For me, when I lost weight, that was the first thing that I did. I removed all the junk. So no more going to Harvey's or McDonald's, which I did normally. No more chocolate bars or ice cream. No more potato chips, which was ketchup flavor or dill pickle. I took all of those things out, and I was like, it's a miracle, because I've been trying diets for years. I just started losing weight. I removed all the things that caused me to gain weight and be unhealthy. So step number 1, remove all ultra-processed foods. If it did not fall off a tree, come off a bush, grow under the ground, I don't know how, maybe swim, something like that. If it was made in a factory, don't eat it. Does that make sense? That first step is probably the biggest thing you can do for your health. Remove ultra-processed foods. If it doesn't grow on a tree, on a bush, off the ground, under the ground, don't eat it. And then you could think, okay, I'm going to implement the Mediterranean diet or some other type of diet. But take out the things that are making you sick. And the second thing, take out the things you're drinking that are making you sick. So I have patients who remove all of those things, but they're still drinking Coke or Pepsi, not to name a few. And then when I do a follow-up with them, they say, well, I'm drinking Coke Zero now. Or diet. What about the diet Pepsi? Or I'm drinking iced tea. I had a patient who told me they're having iced tea every day. I said that's better than Coke Zero, because before Coke Zero it was Coca-Cola. So they're coming down, but that iced tea is full of sugar. So remove all pop, remove juices, unless it's something like cranberry juice. I do have 100% Concord grape juice every now and then. And if I have it, I try to water it down as well. But removing all processed drinks as well. So remove ultra-processed foods, remove processed drinks. When you do that, you will notice you have more energy and that your health is starting to transform and turn around. Hopefully that will make sense. What things can you put in if you have type 2 diabetes? Does anyone recognize this vegetable? Okay.
Bitter melon.
I only heard that recently. Bitter melon. And I've only tasted bitter melon once, and it was very, very bitter. But they have done studies with this vegetable for people who have type 2 diabetes, and they have found that it decreases blood sugar very quickly. But in the studies, they did studies with patients who had type 2 diabetes who were on metformin, and they took it in a juice form. So they had to juice it and drink about 100 milliliters a day, which is only about this much. They took a shot of bitter melon juice every day, and within, I think it was less than a month, they cut their medication by half. So drinking bitter melon juice. There's another spice that we use that's very common that helps to reduce blood sugar. Can anybody think of what that spice is? Oh my gosh, yes, exactly. Mulberries, I'm not sure. Cinnamon. So cinnamon actually helps to decrease blood sugar. Cinnamon. So for my patients who have high blood sugar or even obesity, their breakfast consists of chia pudding, normally, and it's sprinkled with cinnamon. Some patients actually are drinking cinnamon tea or an anti-inflammatory tea, but there's always cinnamon, daily cinnamon involved. Some people ask me, well, what kind of fruits should I eat? And I think nearly everyone has their wonderful food, so I hope that you're enjoying your food as you listen. They'll say, what kind of fruits should I eat? I have diabetes, or I'm at risk for diabetes. I'm afraid to eat fruit. And so they've eliminated all fruit. And I would say that's not a great step. The way you know what fruit to eat is based on how it tastes. Is it sweet or is it sour or bitter? If it's sweet, then I don't recommend eating it. If it's sour, it's something you can eat. So something like apples, but it would be like Granny Smith apples. Most people don't like Granny Smith apples because they're sour. But the interesting thing is Granny Smith apples bring blood sugar levels right down. So if you had an option between Honeycrisp apple, sweet, Granny Smith apple, sour, choose the Granny Smith apple. Don't go for the Pink Lady, delicious, etc. Granny Smith apples help to control blood sugar levels. If you had an option between a banana that has brown spots on it and a banana that is all yellow, go for the banana that's yellow. The brown spots indicate the sugar levels in that banana are high. That's why most people like it, but you don't want to eat it when the sugar's high. So you don't want to eat a lot of sweet fruits, something like papaya, which I love, or mangoes. Mangoes, when they get really ripe, they're very sweet. Papaya is sweet. Instead, you want to stick with berries, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, Hoscot berries, Saskatoon berries, Chalon berries, and there are a couple berries that are very common in this area as well. They're red, black, or blue. So red, black, or blue berries, or red, black, or blue fruits are high in a chemical called anthocyanins, which helps to control blood sugar levels. It's also an anti-inflammatory. There's another disease that's very common aside from diabetes, but these two things go together. If you have diabetes, you're at risk for this other disease. If you have this other disease, you're at risk for diabetes, and I know a few people here put their hands up, and that is high blood pressure. High blood pressure. It's interesting, a lot of the things that reverse diabetes are the same things that bring blood pressure down. So some of the things you just learned will also be applicable to high blood pressure. And those things, but there is one thing I didn't say. When you hear, sorry, I know you're eating, but when you hear high blood pressure, what is the first cause or reason that you think about? Stress. Stress. So someone might say, you're stressing me out. You're causing my blood pressure to go high. I hear this often from a family member that I have. Well, not that I stress them out very much, but they have high blood pressure and they say, I don't want to talk about it. You're causing my blood pressure to go through the roof. Stress. Did you know that stress also increases your blood sugar as well as your blood pressure? So stress over time puts you at risk for type 2 diabetes. Stress also affects blood sugar levels. So how does stress put you at risk for type 2 diabetes? Because when you're stressed, your blood sugar levels or your blood levels of cortisol, which is a hormone that's secreted when you're stressed out, cortisol levels go high. Cortisol actually causes the liver to be activated to convert its stored sugar in the form of glycogen to glucose, and then the liver starts squirting out, secreting lots of sugar into the blood. Because your body understands you're in a stressful situation, maybe you're about to be attacked by a deer who's running across the street towards you, or some kind of animal, so you're in a fight or flight situation. So you need a lot of sugar to run away or to fight. But in fact, it might be work, or it might be your relationship. So it's ongoing stress and you never use the sugar. But your body's created in a way that it's going to cause the liver to secrete lots of sugar. So stress puts you at risk for type 2 diabetes as well as high blood pressure, as well as a number of other diseases. But we're going to talk about stress on tomorrow. We're going to talk about stress tomorrow. But most people don't think of stress and diabetes. They think of stress and high blood pressure. So those two go together. So high blood pressure. What causes high blood pressure? What are the risks for high blood pressure? First thing I have up here is stress. One of the things that stresses people out is when their computer stops working, or if they're at work and they're trying to make a deadline and you feel like throwing the computer through the window. So number one thing that raises blood pressure is stress. There's something else that raises blood pressure or puts you at risk for high blood pressure that people don't realize. It's the side effects of certain medications. This is also something that raises blood sugar that people don't realize. The side effects of certain medications. There's a medication that's commonly given for high cholesterol. It's called a statin drug. It might be Crestor, it might be Lipitor. It's anything that ends with S-T-A-T-I-N, statin. And that drug actually puts you at risk for type 2 diabetes because it affects the way that insulin works and it raises blood sugar. That information's not from me. It's on the Center for Disease Control's website, on the CDC website. So some of the drugs you're on, the side effects might be it can increase your risk of high blood pressure or high blood sugar. So please look at the side effects of the medications you're on. What is one of the most common signs that your blood pressure is high? A lot of people get this. They get a headache, and it's like the headache that just won't go away. It's throbbing, and you might think, oh, I'm dehydrated. So sometimes that's why people get a headache. They're dehydrated. So the first step would be, I have a headache, I better drink some water. Okay, you drink the water a little bit, the headache doesn't go away. And you think, I have a headache, maybe it's tension, maybe it's stress. But the headache could be because your blood pressure is high. And commonly people just ignore this and they don't know that that is a key sign of high blood pressure. I actually had a really good friend when I was doing my MA, which was in religion, and I did it in the States. And whenever we studied together, he would get this terrible headache. And I thought it's just because he doesn't want to study anymore. So we'd go to Starbucks, we'd be studying. Within 15 minutes, he had this terrible headache. And I thought this is just an excuse to cut the study session short. But one day I said, you know what, I'm just going to drive you to the hospital because it seems like this headache is just not going away. And he said that he couldn't focus, like see properly. He couldn't focus on the page. High blood pressure also, if it's been going on uncontrolled, it can affect vision. So I took him to the hospital. His blood pressure was over 200. That's the top number, over 200. If your blood pressure, the very top number is over 200, you're at risk for a stroke. So the lady said to him, I had no idea that he had high blood pressure and was supposed to be on medication. I mean, he was very young. And she said, you need to start taking your medication right now. And that's when I learned that a headache could indicate high blood pressure. And they put him on medication right away. I don't know if he kept taking it, but that was around the 4th or 5th time we've been studying together and he had a headache. So please don't ignore a headache. If you have a headache and if you already know you have high blood pressure, or even if you don't, get your blood pressure taken. You might have a blood pressure monitor at home. If not, I'm not sure. Does the PharmaSave in town have one of those? Yeah, you can go to the PharmaSave in town. The interesting thing is to get an accurate reading. Like the first time you check, it might not be accurate. To get an accurate reading, you have to go 3 times on 3 separate occasions. But if you go once and it's 200, it's definitely too high. So if you go once and it's 200, you want to go to the hospital because over 200 puts you at risk for a stroke. I have another story which isn't so happy about high blood pressure, which was a very good friend of mine. His cousin, who I know, had a car accident. So sometimes trauma or an extreme stress can cause your blood pressure to go really high. So she had a car accident. She went to the hospital. Her blood pressure was over 200. And they sent her home. And then she monitored, it was over 200, she went back. And my friend sent me, he knows I'm a naturopathic doctor. In BC, they say naturopathic physician. He sent me a text. I'm really concerned about my cousin. Her blood pressure was like 210 over maybe 120. I said, she's at risk for a stroke. Like, she needs to go to the hospital right now. She went to the hospital. They sent her home again. She had a stroke. And she lost use of the entire half side of her body. I know her quite well because after that, she became my patient. And she's doing better, but she still hasn't recovered full use of her left hand. But that could have been prevented. Just knowing those numbers, over 200 or anywhere near 200. Hopefully you'll go to the hospital. Hopefully they will treat you. And hopefully they won't send you home. But if they do send you home, insist, like, this is just too high. I'm at risk. Like, sometimes we have to be advocates for ourselves. And you might insist, I want to be treated right now until my blood pressure is regulated. Hopefully that makes sense. So what do the numbers mean? Part of what I'll be doing on Thursday with the in-body assessment, I'll also be taking your blood pressure, and we'll talk about what your individual blood pressure is. That's between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. A lot of people just know these numbers. Like I just said, 200. I can tell some people know because most people gasped. But they don't really understand what's this top number, what's this bottom number, what's going on in my body. So I just quickly want to tell you the top number, which is your systolic, that is actually measuring the pressure against the aortic arterial wall when your heart's beating. So if you think of your aorta, which is the biggest blood vessel in the body, you think of it like a garden hose. So if you have a garden hose and you're measuring the pressure inside the garden hose, how much water does that pressure, how much pressure does the water create? The water is your blood, the garden hose is your blood vessel. And if it's gummed up with something like, I don't know what gums up a garden hose, but in the arteries it's fat, cholesterol, etc. Maybe it's gummed up with mud. Then there's going to be a lot of pressure in the garden hose. Sometimes so much pressure that it blows the faucet. That's what happens. Hopefully it won't blow the faucet, which is your heart. But that's what you're measuring. The amount of pressure in the artery, which is like the garden hose, when your heart beats. That's the left ventricle of the heart. It beats, it sends the blood out through the entire body. How much pressure is in the artery during that heartbeat? That's the top number. The bottom number, which is diastolic, is how much pressure is actually in the artery when the heart is relaxing and filling up with blood. So when the left ventricle is filling up with blood from the from the left atrium, when the heart's relaxing, how much pressure is there in the artery when the heart's relaxing? That's the bottom number. So that's the systolic and diastolic numbers. So there are a lot of reasons why people get kind of wonky numbers. And I've had all kinds of stories of people telling me if I'm doing like a Zoom call or a distance telecommunication, a one-on-one appointment, and they're telling me their numbers. I haven't actually taken it myself. And sometimes I'll get these wild numbers and I have to ask, just walk me through it. What are you doing? And tell me how you're taking your blood pressure. And of course, they'll say, Dr. Plummer, I've had high blood pressure for years. I know how to take my blood pressure. I had a patient who his blood pressure was typically about 150 over 90, and it suddenly dropped to low blood pressure, about 100 over 60. And of course, I'd given him a diet. I said, remove all ultra-processed foods, start exercising because it helps to decrease stress. But it just seemed like a radical shift in a short period of time. I wanted to think it was my recommendations and him implementing. But I asked him, anyway, just tell me, how are you taking your blood pressure? Just walk me through it. You wake up and then what happens? He said, well, Dr. Plummer, you said take the blood pressure when I'm relaxed and in the morning shortly after waking up. So I have my blood pressure monitor here on my side table right beside my bed. And as soon as I wake up, I'm lying down, I'm thinking nice calm thoughts, I'm lying in bed, I put them under, I slip the blood pressure cuff on, and I press the button. I said, okay, so you're taking your blood pressure in bed, lying down. Yes, you told me first thing in the morning. So that's when I learned be more careful with my words because his blood pressure was a pressure when he's lying down. And of course, when you're lying down, the pressure in the arteries is not as much. Your heart, your veins, everything aren't pumping as much to bring the blood flow all the way back to the heart. So I said, okay, you were right. I did say first thing in the morning, but can you please start taking it at least 1 hour after waking, after you've been walking around and you have better blood circulation, and then take it. And so then he took it and was more like 135 over 85, which was better than what it was initially, but I knew something was a little bit tricky. So how do you get an accurate reading? Number one, do not take your blood pressure lying down. You want to be sitting up, but you also want to be sitting up after you've relaxed for at least 5 minutes. Sometimes when people are rushing to an appointment, they're rushing, they're late, and they arrive and they're like, okay, I'm ready. I don't want to take their blood pressure at that time. Their stress level's high, they've been rushing, their heart rate's going to be high as well. So you have to be sitting relaxed for at least 5 minutes. There are a few other things that affect blood pressure. If you've been drinking, most people aren't drinking during the day, but even drinking alcohol the night before can cause your blood pressure to be high. Caffeine raises blood pressure temporarily. So if you've had coffee within 30 minutes of taking your blood pressure, it's not going to be an accurate reading. So don't drink coffee and then within 30 minutes take your blood pressure. You want to wait at least 1 hour. Other things to get an accurate reading. 1 hour after coffee, I ask people not to cross their legs because if you think of a garden hose, if you cross the garden hose, the pressure in the garden hose goes right up. It's the same thing with us. So a lot of women cross their legs and they'll give me their arm and I'll ask them to not cross their legs and then they cross their ankles. I ask them to not cross their ankles, which is a bad habit, but you want to make sure your legs are uncrossed so that it's accurate. Normally that causes the top number to be high. Arm at heart level. If you take your hands, which you don't have to do right now, but if you were to put your hand down like this, and then take a look at the veins on your hands. So your hand is down. You'll notice that the veins in your hands become engorged, which means that the blood flow through your arm would be less. All of the blood is now flowing towards my fingertips. So if you take your blood pressure and your hand is facing down like this, the numbers are going to be lower than what is accurate. So you want to take your blood pressure where your arm is not up in the air, it's not down towards the ground, it's kind of like at heart level. And I like to rearrange chairs so that people can take their blood pressure where their arms on the table so they're nice and relaxed, and usually it's at heart level. If not, I hold their arm. So make sure that your arm is at heart level on bare skin. A lot of people they don't want to take off their sweater, etc., and so they'll take it over their clothes. You can get a pretty good reading, but the most accurate reading is on bare skin. And the other thing is people will roll up if they have like maybe a tight shirt, they'll roll it up. If it's too tight, your top number systolic is going to be high. So you want it to be on bare skin, but you haven't rolled up your shirt so it's so tight that it would affect your blood pressure. No talking. I see this often because I often work with a group of healthcare professionals and we're all taking blood pressure in one large room at the time and everybody else is talking. Most of the reasons why healthcare professionals talk to you while taking blood pressure, which is a no-no, is because they want to distract you. They want you to be calm, not stressed out. So they'll say, so how's your day going? What'd you have for breakfast? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, really? What are you doing on the weekend? All of that talking affects the numbers. So no talking during blood pressure. You shouldn't talk to them. They shouldn't talk to you. If you're doing it yourself, you shouldn't talk to anyone. So talking can affect the numbers. So no talking while taking blood pressure. In a relaxed seat position, that's not supposed to happen. Ignore that. Yes, go ahead. Yes. Right. So I like the monitor to be on a table. It really doesn't matter. It's more like where the cuff is, but I usually put them under on a table, and that way I'm not worrying about it falling or anything like that. As long as the like the tube is not taut, meaning super tight, and it could pull off or it's not well attached, it doesn't really matter. Arms should be at heart level. When you say the monitor, you mean like the machine part, right? It's, yeah, yeah. In a relaxed seated position, you don't want to be holding yourself so that you're tense. You want to be relaxed. As I said, it's affected by alcohol even the night before. Uh-oh, this thing, uh-oh. Okay, one moment. I'm not sure what's happening now. Uh, don't know why that's happening. But I'm not stressed about it and raising my blood pressure. It's affected by poor sleep as well. Do not retake it immediately on the same arm. Okay, this is something that's more like a controversial subject when it comes to blood pressure. A lot of people take their blood pressure, they don't like the first number, so they'll take it again. Oh, it's getting better. Take it again. Oh, third time's a charm. Every time you do that, you're actually constricting the blood flow, so it's going to get lower and lower. Though some doctors do take it again and again. We were taught that in between readings, you should put your arm up in the air, pump if you're doing it on the same arm, pump in the air 10 times. You want to get the blood flow back in the arm, and then wait a few minutes, and then you can take it again. If you keep taking it, it's going to get lower and lower, so it's not accurate. Why does high blood pressure happen in the first place? We're going to talk more about resistance, cardiac output, blood volume, but resistance. So this is kind of a picture of a blood vessel. Every blood vessel has 3 layers, and you can see that's the blood flowing through a nice, clean blood vessel. So there's not a cholesterol buildup. There isn't a lot of plaque. You've got good blood flow. Those are red blood cells going through. Nothing causing the blood pressure to be high. But one of the things that causes blood pressure to be high, aside from stress, is atherosclerosis, which basically means you have this gummy kind of fat. I've actually seen a lot of videos by doctors, and I've watched these operations where they're pulling out this layer of this gummy fat out of the arteries before they put a stent in. So one of the reasons why high blood pressure happens is you have this gummy layer of plaque that is lining the arteries. It used to be called hardening of the arteries, but that didn't really explain why are the arteries so hard. This plaque is gumming up. This is one of the reasons why cholesterol is something that's tried to keep it lower. And when the cholesterol or the plaque is gumming up the artery, if you look at where it says narrowed artery, there's not as much space for the blood to flow through. So high cholesterol, high plaque creates abnormal blood flow. There's something else that happens when blood flow is abnormal, meaning if you've got a lot of plaque, then the blood flow isn't nice and even. It could be turbid, meaning your blood's hitting against the artery as it goes. When your blood's hitting against the artery as it goes, it can cause a blood clot, and this is one of the reasons why people have a heart attack. This is a picture of an artery of a heart and arteries that have a plaque buildup. You'll notice there's a lot of fat in the heart. And then if you look at the red blood cells trying to get through, they're hitting these narrow spaces. If that narrow space continues, then it can lead to a blockage in the left coronary artery, which is the main artery that goes towards the heart. when that is blocked, that the blockage of that artery is called the widowmaker, because at one point heart attacks were more common with men than women. When that artery gets blocked, then you'd have a heart attack. So one of the reasons why people have high blood pressure is blocked or narrowed arteries that are full of plaque and fat. And then it's just a matter of time before you're at risk for a heart attack or a stroke, which isn't fun. So reversing high blood pressure is key in living a long life. Yes. Okay. Not necessarily. A lot of the blood pressure medications are working to either. Exactly. A lot of the, and I'll get to that, a lot of the blood pressure medications are working to either slow down their heart, so your heart's beating at a slower pace, so there's less pressure in the arteries, or they're working on the kidneys, so there's less blood volume, or they're working on thinning, not necessarily, but a lot of things that, like, it might be ASA, or you might be given an aspirin or a blood thinner. They're working on making the blood thinner, so when the blood's going through, it'll go through the arteries better, but it doesn't necessarily take the plaque away. It just makes less resistance, so your blood pressure comes down, but the plaque might still be there. So I guess your question would be, how do you get rid of the fat and the plaque? And the answer, I think, might be here. Maybe. I hope that's the next slide. How do you get rid of the fat and the plaque? Well, you look at these things at the top that can lead to having a lot of fat or plaque in the arteries, and you do the opposite. What are those things? Eating meals like the ones that I used to eat at McDonald's. It's a Big Mac. I said the things I said to eliminate: fries, Coca-Cola, etc., drinking a lot of alcohol, being sedentary, smoking, high stress levels, and sometimes side effects of medications. What are things that can make it better? You'll notice there's a cake on that lower one, and I said eliminate cake. But it's a symbol, and I'll explain why it's there. So you're not like, Dr. Plummer, you said don't eat cake. Over here, monitoring your blood pressure, so you know that if you're monitoring your blood pressure, you would know if you're in a blood pressure emergency, which is called a hypertension crisis. So when it gets too high, going to the hospital, so you're avoiding a stroke. Increasing the health of your relationship, whether most likely male-female relationship, the relationship with your partners. That's often the biggest area of stress that, not always, I mean, some people have fantastic relationships, but relationship with boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, kind of making that relationship more healthy so that blood pressure and health comes down. This tree right here indicates community, friends, family, having people to talk to. As I said, on the Mediterranean diet pyramid, the very first tier was community, social interaction. That can help to eliminate or at least bring down high blood pressure. Having somebody you talk to about whatever these stressful things are in your life. Okay, the birthday cake is there. I'm not saying eat cake to get rid of the plaque in your arteries, but I am saying celebrate things that are important to you. Don't necessarily celebrate with cake. But I think it shows the idea of celebration. Celebrate with friends and family. You're important, so don't ignore yourself if you just graduated from university or got a promotion at your job, or it's your birthday or whatever the case. Don't let it just pass by. Celebrate. So you've got a good hit of dopamine and it increases happiness. People underestimate the power of vitamin D. So here during this time of year, there's been a lot of sunshine. I know maybe shortly in a month or two, there won't be as much sunshine. There is actually a clinical association between low vitamin D, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes. That people, and other depression, etc. So people underestimate the power of getting enough sun or taking a vitamin D supplement. So getting more vitamin D, and the final one, going to see your doctor for regular blood tests. So these would be some of the ways to keep your blood pressure down, to eliminate the plaque. I think, oh, there's no exercise there. Okay, it was avoid inactivity, but I should have someone exercising as well. Exercise as well. And of course, changing your diet, going from a diet like the McDonald's diet there to a diet like what you had for dinner. These are ways of changing your maybe what might happen in the future and bringing down your blood pressure. What are some of the risk factors, not just for high blood pressure, but also for diabetes, also for cardiovascular disease? They can even be risk factors for some mental health conditions, obesity, having a poor diet, low physical exercise. Those three things are kind of across the board. So to transform your health, it would be to reverse or change those three things. Increase your physical exercise, change your diet so that's healthier, remove all ultra-processed foods, and lose weight if needed. Certain chronic conditions can put you at risk for other chronic conditions. So diabetes puts you at risk for high blood pressure, which puts you at risk for cardiovascular disease, and it just kind of rolls from there. But those three go together. Low vitamin D and pre-hypertension, as well as pre-diabetes. So pre-hypertension means your blood pressure is going up and up and up. That's the best time to make lifestyle changes. What are some other things that put you at risk? Smoking. I think most people know it's not good for your health. So if you smoke, it would be smoking cessation. We can have a whole discussion about how to be successful in that, because I know it's easier said than done. Being someone who smoked for a little while, but has quit a long time ago. Alcohol, stop drinking alcohol. Sometimes side effects of some medications put us at risk for other diseases. And then family history, we know we're at risk. And I guess my uncle also has high blood pressure, as well as my mother and a lot of other people. So I'm at risk for high blood pressure, obesity, type 2 diabetes, etc. Many of these things are changeable. So there are risk factors that are changeable. They're called modifiable, and risk factors that are not changeable, non-modifiable risk factors. You can't change what your parents, uncles, aunts are doing. You can change what you're doing. You can't necessarily change your gender unless it's through drugs and operations, etc. We can't change our age, but we can change our mental age. We can't change our race, but you can change most of the other risk factors here. So taking a look at the risk factors and making a decision, I want to change these things, quit alcohol, quit smoking, lose weight, change my diet, and exercise a little more. And we'll talk more about how to do those things and what to do as we continue on. So the way that we're working the conference is every night builds on the night before. So we'll talk more about each of those things as we continue on. But I want to talk a little bit about some preventative steps or some answers. So what to do and how to do it. Weight loss helps with type 2 diabetes, and it also helps with lowering high blood pressure. I've had lots of patients who come to see me for obesity. They have high blood pressure, they're on medication. They lose about 20 pounds, which might sound like a lot, and they're off their blood pressure medication and their blood pressure is regulated. I also sometimes do recommend natural supplements that act as blood thinners, as you had said, and that helps with high blood pressure as well. Or I tell them increase some of these natural foods like garlic. But when you cook garlic, then you burn off the allicin in garlic, which is one of the elements that helps with the blood thinning. So raw garlic, I might say increase turmeric, which also helps to thin the blood. So not that I'm recommending those things, but there are certain things that I will recommend, as well as losing weight, to bring the blood pressure down. And those things are working because they're natural blood thinners. So losing weight, diet and lifestyle management for 2 to 3 months. If you're overweight, it's most likely that you did not gain all that weight. Sometimes people do, but usually it's not that you gained all that weight in 4 to 6 weeks. Usually it's you gained that weight in 4 to 6 years or longer, but people think I want to lose it in 2 weeks. So what do you have to be prepared for? Be prepared for a 2 or 3 month journey. So you're thinking, I'm making lifestyle changes. It might take 2 months, 3 months. It might take 6 months, but I'm not expecting it to happen like this because part of it is learning what to do as you go along the way. And we'll talk about some of those things this week. There are different diets that people can try. As I said, the Mediterranean diet, the portfolio diet, the DASH diet. Most of these have a few things in common. Lots of olive oil. If you're choosing to eat an animal of any kind, it would be fish. Increasing your fiber. Fiber actually acts as a glue, and it glues onto cholesterol. Cholesterol glues onto fiber in the stool, and then you poop it out every day. So having regular bowel movements is very important. But fiber can work against you instead of working for you. How does it work against you? Okay, I was going to say the opposite way. Okay, not absorbing the fiber is one thing. Anyone else? Right. So I was going to say the opposite, constipation. So people increase their fiber, but they don't increase their water. And then when you increase your fiber without the water, then you're going to have constipation. So things get blocked up. Yes, you make nice bulky stools, but it's too dry in the large intestine, and then it's not going to pass through. I actually had a patient, an ex-patient at this point. She wasn't my patient, but she called me in an emergency. And even though we hadn't, had a visit in maybe 5 months, it was nighttime. She called me in an emergency. She said she was in intense pain and intense back pain, and she was lying on the bed on her back and didn't know what to do. And I said, okay, what's the problem? And she said the problem is that she can't go to the bathroom. She's been gummed up for quite a while, and it's now becoming painful. I said, okay, it sounds like you have something which is called fecal impaction, which means that all of the stool is there and it's become like a hard rock. I said, what did you do? I went to see my medical doctor. She told me to increase my fiber, and I think she had recommended Metamucil or something like that to take in the morning. So she thought, my doctor said take, 2 or 3 tablespoons. I thought it's going to work for me, and it's better to take more, so it's more effective. So she doubled or tripled the amount of fiber that she was taking. She didn't increase the water, and she ended up in severe, severe pain with the stool basically clogged up, and she was unable to even move. I said, if you can make your way to the kitchen, put the kettle on, you're going to start drinking some really hot water. And I don't normally recommend coffee, but this time I am going to. So she had nearly 2 liters of hot water and coffee, and she was able to have a bowel movement. And from that, we had a discussion about fiber and water. So when you increase your fiber, you want to increase your water. There's another way of using water that will help you not only have regular bowel movements, but also lose weight, which you might not have heard of, which we'll talk more about on Wednesday and Thursday, but I call it the water sandwich. So you're increasing your fiber, like a meal like tonight is a little bit higher in fiber. And the way that you use water to help with regular bowel movements, to help lose weight, as a water sandwich means before you eat, maybe 15 or 20 minutes before you eat, you drink 2 cups of water. Then when you're eating your meal, you drink nothing. You eat your meal, I would say dry, but that's why we have the parotid gland and other salivary glands. So your mouth is going to start secreting saliva so you can swallow it. About 15 or 20 minutes after your meal, then you drink 2 cups of water. So that's the way it's a water sandwich. 2 cups of water before your meal, 2 cups of water after your meal, nothing while you're eating. And I'll explain a little more about that and salivary amylase and all the things that are found in your saliva when we talk about digestion. But this way, it will help with regular bowel movements, It also makes sure you're drinking enough water, especially if you're increasing your fiber, and it helps you to feel full. And it's called water loading, and this is a way of helping to kind of control your appetite, and it helps with weight loss. Go ahead, Janie. Yeah. Yeah. I've had patients who've had it within 15 to 30 minutes. Um, some people recommend 1 hour after. The reason why I don't say 1 hour after, I mean, optimal would be 1 hour after, but what I found was people forget. So 1 hour after eating, they have the 500 milliliters there, and then they get caught up in doing the laundry or whatever it is, and they just don't finish the sandwich. They have the water before, and they don't have the water after. So now I say 15 to 30 minutes after I have the water. Does that make sense? The DASH diet is a diet that was created by a group of healthcare professionals at the National Heart, Blood, and Lung Institute, and they wanted to see, is there a way of bringing blood pressure down without medication? DASH stands for a dietary approach to stop hypertension. And in that diet, it's very similar to the Mediterranean diet or the diets that we've already talked about. And what they realized was if people are consistent, then it's possible to bring hypertension down without medication. The key word there is consistency. Consistency. Consistency for reducing hypertension, reducing blood sugar levels, losing weight. The main word is consistency. As I said, you probably didn't gain the weight in a few weeks, and it's going to take 2, 3, 6 months. So being consistent is key. This is a summary slide of the different things that you can do in terms of lifestyle changes that help with bringing blood pressure down. It can also help with weight loss, and it can also help with reducing blood sugars. And we've already looked at some of these, but we haven't talked about salt. So a lot of people ask me, when it comes to blood pressure, do I have to stop putting salt on my food? And I would say yes. But where is most of the salt? Where do you think most of the salt is? All right. Okay, the workshop's done. You don't even have to come back. Processed foods. Most of the salt is in ultra processed foods. That's the way they kind of hook you so you keep coming back. Most of the salt is inside the food. So when you go to a restaurant, they use a lot of salt. I've been watching, since I've been here, I've been watching a cooking show every night. And the main thing the chef says, he'll taste it and he'll go, oh, what do you think's missing? And the answer is always salt. Add more salt. So the salt's in the food, it's in the processed food, it's in the restaurants, it's in the food at A&W, it's in takeout, etc. So most of the food is what is in the food, not what you put on the food. So a lot of people, to bring their blood pressure down, they stop putting salt on their food, but they haven't changed the foods that they eat. So eliminating ultra-processed foods, not going to A&W, eliminating takeout, eliminating restaurant food, that leaves you with one thing. And what would that thing be? Cook your own food. Cook your own food, and when you're cooking the food, don't put the salt in and don't put the salt on. So reducing salt to bring down high blood pressure, reducing weight. We'll talk more about that on Wednesday and Thursday. And also when I'm doing the in-body assessments on Thursday between 10 and 4, we can talk more about it for each person individually. Reducing alcohol, as I said, that guideline has changed to 2 drinks per week, 2 or none per week instead of per day. I prefer the none instead of 2. Increasing physical activity. The recommendation, 30 to 60 minutes, 4 to 7 days per week. It's more like 150 minutes. This is the Canadian Heart and Stroke Foundation recommends 150 minutes of exercise per week. So that might be 30 minutes, 5 days per week. What type of exercise do you think is the easiest to do with the greatest impact? You guys know everything. It's walking. However, when you're walking, It's more of a brisk walk. It's not a stroll. A lot of people, they've done studies on people who have dogs versus people who don't have dogs. And people who have dogs generally are a little healthier because usually they're taking a dog for a walk. However, I have walked a lot of dogs who stop every 3 minutes to sniff whatever is around, and then you're not getting consistent exercise. So it's 20 to 30 minutes of walking. 5 days a week, that would be 150 minutes, and you want it to be consistent walking. Consistent walking. A lot of people have Fitbits, and they'll say, I did 10,000 steps, which is great, because it's better to do 10,000 steps than to do 3,000 steps. But those steps might be, I go from here to there, and then I sit down there for an hour, and then I get up to get some water, and then I sit again. Sitting is also, there's a whole discussion we'll talk about sitting. We're, as a society, we're just sitting so much more now than we were before. So you want it to be consistent exercise where you're not stopping all the time and you're walking at a pace where you could have a conversation with someone. To have a conversation, it means you need a lot of air. You could have a conversation with someone, but really you don't want to. So you have enough air to, but you don't want to because it might make you feel just a little bit uncomfortable. This is called brisk walking. But if you're unconditioned, which means you never go for a walk, do not go out tomorrow and say, Dr. Plummer says that I have to walk for 30 minutes, super brisk. Start with maybe 10 or 15 minutes and then work your way up. Every week you can add 5 minutes. Does that make sense? Dietary patterns, we've already talked about that. Quit smoking. Waist circumference. Waist circumference for women under 88 centimeters and for men under 102 centimeters. Why would you be measuring how much or how wide you are, let's say the girth around your waist, versus just how much you weigh on the scale? Okay, visceral fat. Yes, different heights as well, but around the waist, that's where your visceral fat, meaning the fat that is kind of hanging around the abdominal area on the inside surrounding your organs. Eventually that fat shows on the outside, but some people look quite thin on the outside, but they've got a lot of fat surrounding the organs on the inside. Now that fat is actually different. It's white fat, and it's different than the fat that's found on your hips, which is brown fat. That white fat is very inflammatory. There was a belief, maybe decades ago, probably as recent as 10 years ago, that fat just sits on the body and it's inert, meaning it's just sitting there doing nothing. What they know now, especially visceral fat or white fat, is that 24/7, that fat is doing something. It's giving off these messenger signals, these actual chemicals called cytokine messengers that are inflammatory. 24/7 it's sending out these chemicals that are raising the inflammation levels in the body. And that's why they say visceral fat or the fat around the abdominal area puts you at higher risk for a heart attack. If you have a lot of fat, it's better to have a lot of fat, if you have any, around the hips than the fat that's surrounding the organs. The other thing is that fat chokes your organs. But there is one organ, I mean, we have several, but one in particular that's very resilient, that can actually repair itself, you could say, unless it's an extreme case, which does happen. Can anyone guess at what that organ is? The liver. So the liver can repair itself unless it's extreme and you're at the point of extreme liver cirrhosis, and then it won't repair itself. But when the liver is surrounded by a lot of fat, so you've got a lot of visceral fat in this area, the liver is here on the right side, around here, surrounded by the fat, then the liver kind of turns into, it's kind of spongy, and it starts absorbing the fat. And then you are diagnosed with fatty liver disease. So this fat in this area is very dangerous. And it's also one of the things, when you lose fat from that area, blood pressure goes down, inflammation levels go down. The other good thing is fatty liver is reversible. So when you lose the fat, you lose it from your liver as well. Yes?
So when you are dieting, you lose fat
You can. It depends on what you're doing. So I have a quick story about that. I have so many stories. Wait, we're here until what time? I had a patient who was on a weight loss plan with me 6 months. So she followed these steps. First, she believed it was possible. She made a decision. She told me, I'll be working with you. She told me instead of me telling her, I'm going to be working with you for 6 months. I was like, okay, that's awesome. We'll see. But I was thinking, I actually thought she's probably not going to stick with it, but she did. For 6 months, she weighed about 170 pounds. Her goal was to weigh 117 pounds in 6 months. And she also had fatty liver. She was following everything and losing a lot of weight. But one day she came to me and said, I've been hiding my figure from you. And she came with a pair of exercise shorts on and like a workout bra. And so she took her clothes off, except the exercise shorts and the workout bra, and she had a big round abdominal area, skinny legs, and we had just been weighing. So I already know this, but I wasn't doing her waist circumference, and she was losing weight, following everything, but she had a lot of fat around the waist. And she had had a lot of fat around the waist for years. I think she was about 70, and she'd been overweight for decades. So it seemed like she was losing weight from everywhere except this area. So to answer your question, you can lose weight from everywhere. This area tends to be, for some people, a tougher place to lose weight. But as I said, the saying is great abs are made in the kitchen. Exercise can help, but it's more what you're eating. But with her, I put her on a diet to target the fat around the waist, which there are a few foods. There's a lot of like experimentation being done right now to see, are there foods that you can eat that target abdominal fat or visceral fat? You lose fat from all over. Most women lose fat from, their face or chest area, more fatty places, but this tends to be fat that's a little bit tougher. In a study that was done at the University of Toronto, they did a study on middle-aged women, if you want to say that, women between the ages of 40 and 60 who are pre-diabetic and had a large waist circumference. And they wanted to see if eating certain foods would help with the visceral fat. And they started eating navy beans, 5 cups of navy beans every week. So they 5 days in a row, they had navy beans. Oh no, they took the weekends off. No navy beans on the weekend. It's actually available on PubMed. It's a study that you can look up at the University of Toronto. For 1 month, they had navy beans. 5 cups, 1 cup of navy beans, kind of Monday to Friday. I'm assuming. The study doesn't say Monday to Friday. After 1 month, they lost 2.5 inches off the waist. So there are certain foods you can eat that help with the fat on the abdominal area. But it's not guaranteed that when you lose weight, you'll lose weight there too. Yes. Yes. But you do lose some fat there. And I've had lots of patients who have fatty liver. They have lost weight and they no longer have fatty liver. So the fat around the organs has gone down. Okay, is there a way of eating that will help you to eat the right things and continue eating in the right way? I'm going to suggest 2 ways of eating that help you to eat the right things and eat in the right way, and it might not be what you're thinking. One of those things is called mindful eating. Can the way that you eat improve digestion, improve your health, help reverse disease, let's say, or transform your health, or even help with weight loss? Has anybody heard of mindful eating? Okay. And I'll say the other way is eating order, which actually I could have done while you were eating. That would have been a good time. But now you're going to have to remember what you ate. But I'll start with mindful eating. Actually, I'll start with eating order, and then we'll do mindful eating. Since my plate is right here, so this is what you ate, eating order can actually help regulate blood sugar and also help you lose weight, which means what you have on your plate, even though you've made good decisions about what's on your plate, it is what you eat first and what you eat last that actually can help to regulate blood sugar and also help with weight loss. So it's not just what's on your plate, it's what you eat first, what you eat second, what you ate last. So what you guys ate, and this is why I'm saying I could have done this before you were eating, is you had salad, you had some kind of bread, you had a protein, which was tofu and chickpeas, and you had a grain. So if you were looking at this with eating order to help regulate blood sugar, you would start with, what do you think? Salad. Oh, what was that? Salad. So you're starting with the leafy green or whatever green vegetables you have on your plate. What do you think you would eat next? No. The protein. Very good. You eat the leafy green or the vegetables first. You want to eat the protein or the fat second. This way your blood sugar is not spiking right away. So your blood sugar is regulating. The very, very last thing that you eat on the plate would be the starch, the carbs, etc., the bread, the rice. You eat that last. When most people start off with the meal and they're ravenous and you're super, super hungry, what's the first thing that you eat? Bread. When you're really hungry, you eat the bread first. It kind of satisfies you a little bit, and then you might get to probably the protein. The salad doesn't look that great when you're that hungry. You leave the salad to the end, and by then you're already a little bit full, and you end up leaving some salad on your plate, which should be the first thing that you eat. When you eat that bread first, your blood sugar is going to spike, so your blood sugar goes high. Your pancreas secretes insulin, so then you have an insulin spike. And when you have an insulin spike, your body tends to hold on to fat. There's more happening than what I just said, but that's kind of a summary. So proper eating order, or eating in a way that helps to transform health, helps with digestion, help with weight loss, start with the greens. Whether it's a leafy green, whether it's green vegetables, even if they're not green, eat your vegetables first, which is something your mother probably told you the entire time you were growing up. She didn't know that she was helping to regulate your blood sugar. But eat your vegetables first. After that, protein and fats. And then after that, starches and carbs. Does that make sense? Sometimes we know what to do, but we don't do it. Yes? Did you have a question? Okay. Oh. Okay. All at different times? Okay. Well, at least you started with the salad. That was a good start. I mean, if you're starting with the green as opposed to starting with the bread, your blood sugar is not going to suddenly spike. But eating it, and some people just put it all together. But eating it in a certain order would be a little bit better. The way we eat, what we're thinking when we're eating, the state that we're in when we're eating can all affect digestion, our stress levels, the chemicals that are being secreted when you eat, and also whether we're going to lose weight or gain weight when we're eating. So that way of eating is called mindful eating. And part of mindful eating, it also helps you to make these good decisions. You might know I'm supposed to eat the greens first, but you're not being mindful and you're really hungry, but the water loading, having the water first, stops this. And so you eat the bread. But when you're mindful, hopefully you'll eat the greens first. What is mindful eating? So mindful eating is a way of eating where you are starting by being calm, and you're starting eating in the right mindset. So where does digestion begin, which we'll be talking more about on Tuesday. But I'll ask you now, where do you think digestion begins? Okay, you said in your mouth. Okay, those are two different things. In your eyes. In your mind. Okay. Anybody else? Yes? Okay, plating. Praying. Ooh, good one. All right. Everybody's right. But there is a bit of an order. So good digestion, or the way your body is going to respond to food, starts here in your mind. It's affected by your eyes. It's affected by what you do before you eat. And after all of that, it's also affected by your nose and what you smell. And after all of that, it's the mouth. So there's a lot happening that you can do to affect the way that that food is going to be processed in your body before you put it in your mouth. So it starts with, what is your mindset? What are you thinking of when you're eating? The worst state to be in when you're eating would be what kind of state? Stressed, a stress state. Well, if you're starving and ravenous, yes, you're probably stressed as well. Then you're going to choose the bread first instead of the greens. A stress state. So when you're in a stress state, your nervous system is in what's called a sympathetic nervous system state. You're in fight or flight. You're not going to have the right digestive juices. Your glands, your salivary glands aren't going to secrete a lot of saliva. You're not going to have good digestion. So while you're eating, it's nice to not discuss the elephant in the room or whatever topic you've been wanting to talk to your partner or family about. Most people think this is great. Everyone's around the table. What a great time to bring up that contentious issue or whatever's been bugging me all day. No, don't do that. Because every person who hears that stressful argument, all of their digestion will be affected as well, even if they're not speaking. So it starts in your mind. What is your mindset? Are you in a relaxed state or are you in a stress state before you eat? What can you do to be in a more relaxed state? Meaning you want your nervous system to be calm, in a parasympathetic state. Some people call it the rest and digest state for the nervous system. You can pray. Praying helps to calm down the nervous system. If you're not into prayer, you could say thank you or be in a state of thankfulness. You could look at the food and think, I'm so thankful for this food. You can practice gratitude. I'm so grateful to be here at the table with my family and friends and loved ones. I'm so grateful for this food. If you choose none of those things, you can do breathing, and you breathe in a way that shifts your nervous system from a stress state to a calm state. That type of breathing would be you breathe in your nose for a count of 4. Well, we all do it together. Everybody can get nice and calm together. So you'll breathe in your nose. I'm going to count to 4. Then you breathe out your mouth for a count of 7. Are you ready? Okay, everybody start breathing in your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, in your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Out your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Does everyone feel calm now? I feel like going to sleep. No? Who said no? You didn't do the breathing properly. Just doing that, maybe you needed to do it a third time. 2 or 3 times really calms the nervous system. Then you're in a more calm state, and that's the state you want to be in when you're ready to eat. You'll have more saliva, more digestive juices, and you will digest your food better. Next step. Yes. Yes. Yep. Excellent. That's called boxed breathing, which you can do. You can breathe in your nose, hold it. So if you breathe in for 4, you hold it for 4, then you breathe out for 7, and then you hold it empty, and then you breathe in, etc. Even doing just the breathing in and a long exhalation will shift the nervous system. But if you do the box breathing where you hold it, that's actually even more effective for anxiety or lowering stress, but especially anxiety or even insomnia. I recommend box breathing. So either one. You've been doing it? Good. After you're in a nice, calm state, the next step is you look at your food. So you don't want to sit down when you're ravenous and before you know it, the food's gone. You look at your food, look at the colors of the food, look at the beautiful greens and the reds and the yellows. And this gives you a little more appreciation. I think someone said appreciation for your food. So look at the colors. When you do that, it puts you in a state of presence. You are here. You're not thinking of work, etc. You're present. Look at the colors in the food. Next, you pay attention to what you hear, which was me talking while you're eating. Hopefully it was a pleasant sound to the ear. But when you're paying attention to what you're hearing, it makes you present. So you're present and appreciating. A lot of people eat in a distracted state, which is called distracted eating. You're just eating, you're not paying attention, you're on your phone, on your computer, watching something on YouTube. People tend to take in more calories when they're distracted, and they tend to munch more snacks. They don't realize they feel full because they're distracted. When you're looking at the food, when you're hearing the sounds, it stops distracted eating. Hopefully that makes sense. Next, you smell the food. When you see the food, I'm not sure if I have eyes in here. Oh, I skipped the eyes. I said look at the colors. Yes. When you see the food, when you smell the food, it prepares your body to eat the food and digest the food. It causes the secretion of a hormone or a chemical called ghrelin, which opens up your appetite, and that's going to help you to actually eat and digest the food. So you don't want to just jump into the food. Smell the food. Has anyone here walked by the Artisan Bakery? I think it's called the Abundance Bakery, when they're baking first thing in the morning. Have you smelt the croissants and all the incredible things that they're baking? Did you suddenly think, that smells really good? You know, I wasn't hungry, but I wouldn't mind going in and buying something. I think most bakery owners know that scent affects appetite. So scent causes the secretion of more ghrelin. And if you go in there and you see it and you smell it, then more ghrelin is going to be secreted. And before you know it, your stomach goes gurgle and you think, I am hungry. I didn't think I was. It's a secret of bakery owners. So smelling and seeing causes the secretion of more ghrelin. So next would be you smell the food, and finally you eat the food. But when you're eating the food, you want to chew and chew and chew. God gave us these wonderful things called teeth. So you want to keep the food in your mouth and chew it and chew it and chew it until it's like applesauce in your mouth. And that's when you swallow. This way, the saliva is attacking the food. Saliva contains different, natural antiseptic, antimicrobial properties. So it cleans your food. It helps with the digestion of carbohydrates. But you have to keep the food in your mouth. So chew and chew and chew and chew. Also, when you're eating the food, there's something you can do that helps with this establishment of the new habit. I'm trying to eat like this now. I'm following the eating order. I'm doing mindful eating. I was listening, I smelt, I was seeing. And there's something you can do while you're eating the food that's going to help you to keep doing it, to keep going. And that is, you love it. It's your experience of eating the food. Oh, this tofu is so good. Ooh, that's good salad. And not just, Dr. Plummer said I should eat this. It's going to help me. And you're chewing like I have to. You want to experience and enjoy the food. Losing weight or changing your diet doesn't mean that it's a grueling task, like you're put in prison for a couple months. You want to enjoy it. Why do you want to enjoy it? And this is a personal experience. Put the food in your mouth and say, whoa, it tastes so good. You can even say it out loud. If you verbalize it, it's better. Because your brain's going to secrete more of a chemical, it's a neurotransmitter called dopamine, when you're enjoying that food. And when your brain secretes more dopamine, you're going to get a signal to do it again. I mean, there's a greater mechanism of action to explain, but that's kind of the bottom line. You eat it, you relish it, you love it, and then you get a memory that's laid down, and the next time at dinner, your brain goes, wasn't that tofu good? Don't you want to do that again? And you do it again, and you think, I love it. Don't think I hate spinach, but I'm just eating it to lose weight. Not sustainable. I love it. And then the things you want to stop eating, you look at it and you might go, cookies, yuck, I hate it. And then after a while, less dopamine is going to be secreted when you see cookies. So enjoy what you're doing. There's a dopamine explosion happening when you eat slower and when you enjoy your food. It is a fun lifestyle change. As we are wrapping up, because I think we have about 15 minutes left and I want to leave some time for questions. Health and transformation through lifestyle changes. How do you transform your health? One lifestyle change at a time, one day at a time. and enjoy it. Enjoy what you're doing. And that way, if weight loss is your goal, it's lifelong. If reversing diabetes is your goal, it's lifelong. If it's reversing high blood pressure, it's lifelong. So they're lifelong changes instead of I'm just doing this for a short period of time and then it's over. My question to you, and we'll talk more about weight loss on Wednesday and Thursday. How do you think you can lose weight and keep it off? We've already said one of the answers, but what do you think the secret is? Okay, believing, consistency. There's only one answer I would say no to, which is willpower. Because I think making changes is not all about willpower. Sometimes you put yourself in a position where it's you and your willpower versus whatever it is, the chocolate cake. Okay, the chocolate is the most common thing. It's you versus chocolate. But if you didn't have the chocolate in the house and it wasn't in sight and you weren't maybe close enough to smell it, so you're secreting more ghrelin, so you want to eat it. If you avoid it and you clear out your pantry, then you're not putting yourself in a position where it's me versus the chocolate, where it's willpower. If you're planning ahead and you keep your pantry stocked with the other foods, then when you're feeling tempted, you might go, oh, the only thing I have is a Granny Smith apple. It's not the same as chocolate, but I'll take a bite and I'll see, and then you feel better. Or I'm going to exercise. You want to put up some blocks so it's not so easy. It is easy in this town because you don't have to drive that far. But usually if you have to get out of your house, get in the car and it's wintertime and you have to drive to the store to get that chocolate bar and you have to do all of those things, then you're less likely to do it than when it's in your pantry. Yes? So consistency. Some people think it's going vegan. And I do support a 100% plant-based diet, like what you ate today, but there is a way of doing it the wrong way. So people think, oh, I'm just going to go vegan. That's going to fix everything, and then I'm going to be healthy. So the secret is not to go vegan. If you are going vegan, it's to go plant-based, so you're not eating ultra-processed foods. You're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and things that came off a bush or fell off the tree. A lot of people go vegan and they say, yay, I've given up all meat and animal products. I'm now a carbo-sugartarian. And as a carbo-sugartarian, it's just a matter of time before you have all the diseases that you were trying to kind of get rid of. So if we look at that top picture there of French fries, are French fries vegan? Yes, unless they're fried in beef fat or something like that. That's vegan ice cream in the middle. That is vegan cake. I'm actually an ex-vegan cook, and I worked in a bakery, vegan bakery, so I made a lot of vegan cakes. Are potato chips vegan? Yes. Potato chips are vegan. Is pasta vegan? Yes. And that's a vegan cheesecake. So all of these things are vegan. It could be vegan ice cream, vegan frozen yogurt, etc. Gluten-free also doesn't mean healthy. I mean, these are kind of becoming taglines for health, but they're not necessarily health. So it's not being vegan. It's if you're being plant-based, you're eating a lot of healthy plant-based foods, a lot of nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, salads, etc. So one of the secrets to better health and transforming your health, and it seems very rudimentary, but it's to eat real food. What is real food? This is my question. Is this real food? What tree did it fall off of? It fell off of the Lay's potato chip tree. So it hit the ground. It was in the ground as a potato. Excellent. So one of the things would be eat foods in their natural form. Therefore, you eat potatoes, not potato chips. You eat corn, not corn chips. Right. Eat it in its original form. Yes, the potato was in the ground, but then it went through a factory and a series of other things happened to it. So eat it in its original form. One of the things that makes it difficult is we have certain blocks that make it hard for us to implement habits. So I want you to think now and paint out your own steps to make it easy for yourself. Avoid blockages. For example, one of the blockages for changing your diet is just having those no foods available, as we said. So step 1, remove all tempting foods from your house. Does that sound doable? I didn't hear a lot of people say, yes, I'm going to do that. I call it a pantry clean out. It's tough if you want to do that and other people in the house want the Doritos in the pantry, and then it becomes a willpower thing. So hopefully if you're making lifestyle changes, your family or whoever you live with can be on board with you. And then you decide, you know what, we're all going to take steps towards better health. We're removing all of the junk food, all the ultra processed food from the house. That makes it a bit easier on yourself. It depends how it's popped. Actually, if air popped popcorn is not that bad. I worked at a health center for a while and we had an air popper. So we would actually buy the organic kernels, and then we popped the popcorn, and then we added a little bit of flaxseed oil and a little bit of nutritional yeast. So it'd be kind of cheesy. And that was, I think, not a bad snack, but I don't really encourage snacking. Maybe every once in a while, but definitely not every day. So if you're doing it yourself, not bad if it's air popped. Other popcorn that you buy, I mean, smart popcorn, chemicals, etc. So it's what's in the popcorn, what's on the popcorn. Are you popping it yourself? Oh, okay. So it depends. Popcorn's not bad, but it depends. I would imagine it's probably, I mean, using a microwave is also something that's questionable. Maybe what is in the microwave popcorn? Is it the aluminum foil stuff? Oh, okay. It might depend whatever is in the popcorn itself. So whatever chemicals or whatever they put on the popcorn. So I'd recommend popping your own popcorn. Mm. But you can buy air poppers are actually not that expensive, like $35. Oh, you could use that. Yeah. So pop your own popcorn. I don't recommend that people eat a lot of snacks. It interferes with digestion sometimes. It's better to eat your meal, wait about 4 hours, and then eat your meal, wait about 4 hours, eat your final meal, and then don't eat again. Eating late at night is one of the reasons why it makes it hard to lose weight. But an occasional snack, maybe Friday night movie with your family and you have popcorn that you pop, air popped, and you don't put a lot of butter on it, that might be, a once a week kind of thing. Place your gym clothes in your car. A lot of people say, I'm going to work out after work. And this used to be me. After work, they go home and they think, I just want to sit down and it was a hard day. I'm just going to watch a little bit of television. Oh, I'm kind of hungry. I'm just going to eat dinner and then I'm definitely going to the gym after that. Ooh, you know what? It's too late now. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. I'm going to go. I didn't go today, so I'm going to go tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So what I did was I put my gym clothes in the car, and I actually had a recent discussion with the patient who came up with this answer herself, which I thought was amazing. And then I ended up seeing her at the gym. Was she decided she's a teacher and she's tired at the end of the day, but after work she decided she's going to drive straight to the gym, and then she'll work out after work and then go home. And one of the reasons why that is a good plan, for sure you do it. She put her gym clothes in her car so she can always go straight to the gym. But the other thing is after work, most people are stressed out, and exercise helps to decrease stress. So she suggested it. I said, that's a great idea. After you work, go work out, go for a walk. Stress comes down, then you're in a better state. And also you don't go home after work and nibble because when you're stressed, your appetite is increased. So anyway, place your gym clothes in your car. As I said, this is a great step towards transforming your health. Don't put yourself in a position of your willpower versus the food. Remove those tempting foods or remove temptation from your sight as much as possible. Remember, another slide about willpower. Remember, it's not about willpower. There has to be a little bit of discipline for sure, but it could be more about planning. It could be more about decision making. It could be more about just not placing yourself in that position where you're ravenous and the Doritos are in the pantry. That's a bad position to be in. Other things that we can take care of, which we'll talk a little more about on Wednesday, hunger and availability. Yes. Okay, go.
And then it's not in your house.
Absolutely. Do not go to the grocery store when you're hungry. How many people have done that? Gone grocery shopping and you're hungry, and then you end up like putting all these things in your cart that you didn't intend on getting. And then I've done that so many times. I'm in the driver's seat at Costco, and before you pull out, you just open up whatever you bought and you eat right there because you were so hungry. So do not, I don't have that in slide, but thank you for the reminder. Do not go grocery shopping when you're eating. Make sure that you eat first and then you go grocery shopping. It's shocking how much you're influenced by what you see at the grocery store when you're ravenous. So in terms of hunger, you want to make sure that the foods you want to eat are available. If not, you will eat whatever's available. So don't have those foods in the house. Have the other foods in the house instead. Prevention, avoid hunger. We'll talk more about this when we talk about weight loss. But there is a way of eating where basically you're never hungry. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have cravings based on psychology or emotions, but you're eating at specific times and specific foods, meals high in protein and fiber, and then you're not hungry at all through the day. But I will give the specifics when we talk about weight loss on Wednesday and Thursday. Eating specific times and specific compositions of the meal. Do not skip meals because you're trying to lose weight, which is something I did for years because I was working on the calories in and calories out model. So I would skip breakfast and try not to eat until 3 p.m., at which point I was ravenous, and then I ate a ton, and then I get hungry around 9 or 10. Then I would order something terrible like pizza. I think I kept pizza in business for many, many years. And yes, you can make it yourself for sure. But I was skipping meals so that I would not consume as many calories. And then near the end of the day, I consumed a lot of calories. Instead, you're feeding yourself the right foods at the right time so you're not hungry. Skipping meals leads to a dieting mentality, which you want to avoid because that leads to a deprivation mentality, which leads to an I fell off the bandwagon mentality. And then you're in this yo-yo kind of dieting and snacking. Be compassionate with yourself. I remember listening to a podcast as I'm wrapping up today. I was listening to a podcast by a person who has a PhD in exercise science, though he did support steroids, so I wasn't big on that. But what he said was often when people have a diet mentality, and I can say this was me as well, and they're trying to stick to something, but in their minds they're thinking, I'm only doing this for 4 weeks or whatever it is. And after that, I get to go back to the way I was eating before. Usually you don't keep the results. But also during those 4 weeks, if you have a breakdown, you have a day where, I don't know, something happened, stress was high, you go to the 7-Eleven and you get a huge, whatever, you get a milkshake or something and a chocolate bar and the donuts at the 7-Eleven. What is the thing you think? You eat all those donuts, you Slurpee is what I was thinking of. You eat the donuts, you have the Slurpee. How do you feel after that? Oh. Okay, what about how actually immediately you do Okay. Yes? Okay. Excellent. That second part's the important part. Right. So you said you can do better tomorrow. So, which is great. You don't beat yourself up. So I said be compassionate with yourself. Often people, and I can say for myself, if it was like McDonald's, the donuts, etc., I would think, oh man, I just totally blew it. And then I'd say, well, you know what? I've blown it. Might as well the whole day, the whole day. I'm back at Burger King, etc. But then I would feel like I've blown the whole thing. But if you have a day like that, kind of like driving in a car and one wheel, you get a flat tire, you don't think I'm going to throw the whole car out. You replace the tire and you carry on. So the next day, at the end of the day, you think I'm back on it. I'm not going to beat myself up. Okay, I had one day and then you're back to where you were before. So be compassionate with yourself. If you fall off the bandwagon, I don't really like that term, for one day, just go back. Okay, I'm starting again. And if you don't beat yourself up, it's a lot easier to do that. So be compassionate with yourself. Feed yourself instead of starving yourself. You're eating the right foods at the right time with the right amount, and yet you still lose weight. And we'll talk more about that on Wednesday and Thursday. How do you eat? What are the right foods? What are the right times? What's the right amount? How do I keep eating and still losing weight? It is 7 o'clock, and I didn't quite get finished, but I will continue on tomorrow. And tomorrow we're talking about the pillars of lifestyle medicine. Tuesday, digestion. Wednesday and Thursday, weight loss. And as I said at the beginning, on Thursday, I'm doing free assessments between 10 and 4, where I'll be taking blood pressure. We'll be using the in-body assessment machine, and it's just open. You can show up at any time. If you want to book a one-on-one appointment with me at a cost, then please stay and we can start booking up some times. And if you feel like you need to book an appointment, but you don't have the means, then please let me know that, and we're talking about different ways of helping people. Before I end, does anyone have any questions? Go ahead.
I just want to unpack the stress aspect.
Yes.
Are there things that you would recommend in what we consume itself? For example, this was more personal, but I associate the smell of jasmine
Okay.
with those bath pearls. And I was fascinated as a kid with the bath pearls. So jasmine.
I love those bath pearls.
Yeah.
I always want to
They all
eat
smell
them,
of jasmine.
but yes.
So,
Okay.
So I love, for relaxing, drinking jasmine tea.
Okay.
And then the other things I was looking for, because I mean, there's been various drugs that they're marketed or are used for relaxation, like alcohol, and I want to get away from that.
Yes.
So jasmine tea I find has helped. Other things I was looking into was St. John's wort. I want to get your opinion on that. And then another one in this last year, which looks like it only works for a short time before it starts messing with your emotional state, is ashwagandha. And so I just want to get your thoughts on things that we can consume that can help relax and de-stress.
Okay. So tomorrow we're talking about the pillars of health, and tomorrow we're going to be talking about stress and things you can do and take or eat that help with stress. So I'd recommend definitely coming tomorrow. In terms of St. John's wort, it's a little more for depression than stress. Ashwagandha is a little more for anxiety, which does go kind of hand in hand with stress. But there are other things aside from those supplements. One of the things you said, the smell of jasmine tea, lavender tea, or the smell of lavender. Actually, lavender is a natural anxiolytic, meaning it's a natural anti-anxiety compound or flower. And lavender in studies has been found to reduce anxiety, so that reduces stress. Chamomile tea also helps calm. It's very calming. But if you come tomorrow, we'll talk more about those specific things. And sometimes when it comes to stress, there's kind of this point where stress moves into anxiety because stress and anxiety kind of go together. And when it comes to anxiety, there are particular things that you might opt for that are beyond what you would opt for stress. In terms of lavender, it's good for both. But for ashwagandha, I usually recommend that for people who either have generalized anxiety disorder or social anxiety disorder, not that's a little further, or who experience anxiety, or they might have like a very high stress job and every day their stress levels are super high. And so they use ashwagandha for that circumstance.
I have a client that he has disability, and that's what it was on.
He had a disability,
Yeah,
like a mental health disability.
he had Asperger's.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So ashwagandha, I actually have had a lot of patients. I mean, I recommend ashwagandha usually for anxiety, not so much for bringing stress levels down. For stress, I recommend a B complex, especially B6. So we start with smaller things for stress. But ashwagandha normally is very effective. But I have had patients who have had a paradoxical effect, meaning their anxiety goes up instead of going down. So that's more of a case by case kind of basis. Yes.
Isn't ashwagandha recommended for adrenal exhaustion
Yes.
also?
Exactly. So for adrenal fatigue, because it is an adrenal, let's say an adaptogen, which means it's an adrenal modifier, ashwagandha is recommended for that as well. It's awesome that you guys are even familiar with it. That's great. Go ahead.
If you're also taking antidepressants.
It depends what antidepressants. This also goes for St. John's wort because,
Certain ones.
yes. The other thing is for that particular plant or herb, some people get very sleepy on it. So that's why I recommend it for people who have anxiety. It kind of brings or adrenal fatigue. I use it more for anxiety. It brings their anxiety levels down to normal. But no, it's not an SSRI. An SSRI is a pharmaceutical medication that is a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, something like Cipralex or Zoloft.
Similar though, they actually.
No, it's not really working as much on serotonin. It does reduce cortisol, though. So it's bringing stress levels down to the point where sometimes people feel sleepy. So if a person doesn't have anxiety and they just have high stress, they might feel sleepy. So for those patients, I actually recommend taking the ashwagandha at night. At the end of their stressful day, they take the ashwagandha, especially if they have insomnia, and then it helps them sleep. So it can be used in so many different ways. Yep. Go ahead.
Coffee do with constipation? You talk.
Oh, coffee and constipation. Back to my story of fecal impaction. It just helps to stimulate the bowels. So this is the reason why some people first thing in the morning, they have a hot cup of coffee and then they go to the bathroom and they have a regular number 2 or bowel movement. There are other things you can do to stimulate the bowels instead of coffee. And that's why I recommended that patient drink hot water, which also stimulates the bowels. So yeah, that's the association between coffee and that story. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I recently
sorry, I
found
thought-
out
yes.
that being on high blood pressure pills sometimes has a reaction with herbs. and
Okay.
supplements.
Yep.
One is hibiscus,
Okay.
and I really like the hibiscus tea, and I started drinking it, a cup a day, and the doctor did not feel 1 cup would hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
But then suddenly, my
Blood
breathing
pressure.
was rapid, and I was having difficult breathing and everything. And so if you're in doubt, go down and see the pharmacy. I think there's a young fellow there, Mike, and he'll tell you which herbs you can't take if you're on the high blood pressure pills.
Right. So people, I think, don't think that herbs and flowers, etc., are comparable to pharmaceutical medications. So often people are taking things that are contraindicated, meaning they don't go with their medications, or they actually magnify their medications, which is the case with hibiscus. So for my patients who have high blood pressure, I actually ask them to drink hibiscus tea every day. And I also put them on garlic or garlic supplement because it thins their blood. And so if you're on a blood pressure medication and you're taking hibiscus tea, most likely your blood pressure is going to drop beyond where you want it to be. So if you're taking any kind of supplement and you're on a medication, you want to tell the medical doctor. They might not know, because not all medical doctors know, or the pharmacist, and let them know, you know what, I'm on this supplement. Is it okay? Or a naturopathic doctor will know, especially NDs in BC. We also have pharmacy licenses, and we can actually prescribe pharmaceutical meds. Not that I do, but your ND would know, should know. Was there another question right there?
I just want to know if you know, is sleeplessness a malady of old age?
Oh,
If you're not stressed
yes.
and you've done everything, even taken a hot bath with lavender
With
and
the
stuff in
lavender,
it,
yes.
yeah,
And the
that-
chamomile
yet
tea.
all night you can check the clock every hour, every half hour. So you're wide awake and your mind's not going a mile a minute.
Yeah.
And
Are
all
you on
night,
medication?
every night.
Oh, but are
Is
you
that a
taking
health
medication?
problem? Is it a mental problem?
Are you taking medication?
Are you on any medication?
Which kind?
Which one?
Any kind of medication?
I'm on some medications.
Okay.
I want
Pardon me?
more than I want.
More than you
The
want.
doctors say you have to take this, and if you don't,
Right. So sometimes insomnia is a side effect of certain medications. That's why I asked. But when people get older, they do tend to sleep a little bit less than when they were younger. So it might be a combination of age plus medication. Possibly. Yes. Right. Yeah. I do have patients who are a little bit older, let's say, and are sleeping 4 to 6 hours instead of the traditional 6 to 8 hours. Yes.
I just want to know, to help you with the WebMD is actually a lot of herbs that they explain, as well as not just Western medication. They have lots of herbs. They usually list any contraindications about that herb with whatever Western medication.
Yeah.
They usually, they're pretty good about a lot of herbs, knowing what your contraindicates with. So you can just Google whatever
WebMD.
herb, and the WebMD site comes up. They're pretty good about having ACIs
Right.
with herbs and different medications.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you something about your book.
Oh, yes.
Before that, I just wanted to expound
where
on
did it
the
go?
lady that said, "Don't go shopping when you're hungry."
Yes.
Don't go shopping when it's 104 and you're really thirsty. Because I came home with a buggy full of things.
The pop, the Coke Zero.
10 years later, and I'm still working off lime cordial and pomegranate concentrate.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. And not such a bad thing, to drink lots.
Yes.
But your book, you said it was part fiction. So what part of weight loss did you make up? Some stuff?
No.
or-
It's part fiction, just the story of a young lady who battles with losing weight.
Oh, okay.
And so,
Fictitious.
yes. So I thought it would be more of a more fun if you read about a little bit of adventure and then you read about scientific studies. And if it were all about scientific studies and just do this based on the study, it might be a little dry, and this way it's a little more fun. I actually only brought one book with me. Yes, but last time I was here, I brought a whole bunch of books, and my suitcase was very heavy. So, I mean, I managed it, but this time I only brought one book, which is this, which is the author's copy. But as I said, for the people who come every night, we'll be ordering a book for you on Amazon. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes. Does altitude? Oh, yeah, actually. People tend to have higher blood pressure. Are you thinking like just when you're flying?
Because I go from here and sometimes we go in the winter in Colombia and it's 3,300 meters. All of a sudden from here to here.
Oh,
I got a day of the
right. Yeah.
my blood pressure is higher.
It's high. Yep. Definitely. Yeah. But then after a while you acclimate, right? So you live in Colombia? Mm-hmm. Definitely affects blood pressure, if anybody here has experienced that, which I have, because I was kind of traveling in very high areas. So it's part of altitude sickness. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh.
Sometimes when my kids were younger, I would have what I call the sick headache, and the kids would be very sick because light, smell, noise,
Yep.
coffee, bacon would make me feel nauseous.
So that sounds a little more like a migraine than, which is a different type of headache. There are so many different types of headaches, migraines, cluster headaches, stress headaches, etc., which might not be affected by blood pressure. But for a lot of people, while they have a migraine, their blood pressure is high. So it'd be interesting to take your blood pressure at that time. Any other questions? Pardon me? Migraines, yes. Pain, for sure.
Yeah, my sister had migraines for years, and she found out it was cheese and chocolate. Yeah.
It's from cheese and chocolate. Onions are a common, cheese, chocolate, onions, common triggers for migraines. Wine, alcohol, yeah. Triggers, yeah. Any other questions before we wrap up? Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. And hopefully we'll see everyone tomorrow. We're starting a little bit later tomorrow, so we start at 5 p.m. instead of 4:30. And tomorrow we talk about the pillars of lifestyle medicine, and one of those things includes stress management. So we'll be talking about stress, water, etc. Tomorrow. Have a great night. And